Episode 145 of 5 Drinks to Midnight. In the show, we bring the questions, guests bring the drinks. We try to wrap up before midnight. Today, we are headed to Suntory Global here in New York City to talk to Crystal Chasse, Brand Curator for Ardray Whisky. But before we do, like and subscribe, hit the bells, the whistles, you know what to do. Leave a comment if you like what we're doing. Really help us push this in the algorithm. Let's get started. Or midnight, 5 drinks, 5 questions, midnight, whatever comes first. Thank you so much for the invitation to Founders Bar here at Suntory Global. How are we doing today?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us here.
I'm so excited.
We have this beautiful bar, and it's always a favorite of mine to be able to bring people here and showcase our wonderful office.
I love it. Thank you so much for the invite. This has been amazing. Yeah. So thank you. I guess question 1, let's jump right in. What are we drinking first?
Well, I wanted to start us off. It's still summer.
Yeah.
The summer of the spritz. And so I wanted to create something that was reminiscent of the classic Aperol spritz that we always hear and love.
Yeah.
Hear about and love. But this is an Ardray spritz. So this has a little of the Galliano Aperitivo, which is going to be our bittering. I love a bit of sweetness, so we have a little bit of lychee in there. The lychee has some really nice floral notes going on. Ardray, and then a little sparkling wine, a little soda water, grapefruit twist to have a little bit more of that citrus vibe. And that's our Ardray spritz.
Cheers. Damn, you're going to get me hammered today. Like, this is drink 1 and look at this.
Well, you know, if you're doing a spritz, you got to do it in the...
Yeah.
You got to have the big glow. We're into circles and triangles with Ardray. Our signature serve, which we'll do later. We just serve over a round ice cube. We have our big round glass, our small round ice cubes in here.
Love it.
And then our triangle is our big old...
There we go. Shapes and colors today.
Shapes and colors. Excellent. Not always what you think about when you think of Scotch. So
not at all.
But that's why I wanted to do a spritz. I think that you can make Scotch, even though it has some of these more robust flavors. It's all about balancing things and having those robust. Think about it. Even if you're making a classic Aperol spritz, Aperol is also robust. It's got all those bitter notes, and what do? You balance it out with that little Prosecco and that soda water, that little bit of that, citrus vibe. We can do the same with Scotch. Like, it doesn't need to be always, I think people often think about Scotch either neat or on the rocks in normal ways, or they think about it in an old fashioned or a Rob Roy or something like that, which, don't get me wrong, delightful.
Yeah.
But why can't we also have it in a spritz the same way we would explore other spirits?
Yeah,
you know
absolutely.
What I mean? You can do a bourbon old fashioned, but you can also do a bourbon paper plain.
There we go.
So also one of my favorite cocktails, great with Ardray as well. But so this is kind of a twist on combining all of those wonderful flavors and just making something light, bright, refreshing, and rushable. You can who thought that you could drink Scotch at brunch other than me?
Right.
I think Scotches all the time.
Yes.
All the time. And so we have to convince everyone else.
I agree. I mean, fuck, cheers. Yeah, put that again, but yeah. Yeah, it's very nice. I mean, again, would never have thought a Scotch spritz, but love it.
And that's kind of what I love about my job in my life and what I like to do. Even when I was behind the bar, I loved making things that surprise people, things that they think they wouldn't enjoy. Because to me, it feels like I'm opening up this whole new horizon. I'm helping somebody experience life more fully. Touting it a little bit. All because I got them to try the thing they were scared to try.
Right,
you know what I mean? But I think that there's a lot of things that are in life that are scary, but once you get past that, that's some of the best things in life. the scary things are some of the best things in life. And so,
fully agree.
Can be scary to some people, but I'm letting them know. Once you get in, it's going to be some of the best things in your life.
Not even question one, because even before we jump into the origin story, Ardray is just celebrating its year anniversary, or pretty close to. For people at home that don't know anything, can you tell us a little bit what Ardray is and what's it about and everything?
I would be honored to.
Please.
So Ardray is a brand new blended Scotch from Suntory Global Spirits. We launched in LA, New York, London, and Shanghai last year, right around this time. So we're at our 1 year launch anniversary, as I kind of like to say. I only just started saying it, because I only just got here, but I kind of like to say it a little bit, so here we are.
Nice.
But so Suntory wanted to create a Scotch that gave people a fresh perspective on what blended Scotch can be, and has been, and still is. But I think that for a long time, when we got back into whiskeys, we really got focused in on those single malts, which are beautiful and delicious, but blended Scotch kind of took a back seat. Early to mid 1900s, blended Scotch was all the rage. It's what everyone really wanted to drink. You had a lot of complexity of flavor. It softened some of those bigger, bolder notes that you expect from a single malt Scotch, and made something that you could drink all night and enjoy. And not that you can't drink. I drink single malt Scotch all night as well. But you know,
well, you're a fucking badass.
I'm not the average Joe, but so they created and blends, especially at that time, were just much more balanced, and you get a little bit more consistency than you did necessarily get with a single malt. Now we'll have consistency in single malts and in blends, so it's not necessarily exactly about that. We have beautiful blenders, because I think a single malt Scotch is still a blend of Scotches. It's just all those Scotches came from one distillery. Where a blended Scotch, our blenders have the opportunity to get whiskeys from all of our distilleries and from our friends at Edrington, so we were able to get all of those distillery characteristics and layer them together in a really magical way to create something where the sum was greater than the individual parts. Cool thing is too, last year, you might have heard, was the 100-year anniversary of Suntory Whiskey. So 100 years ago, Shinjiro Tori, the founder of Suntory, sent someone over to Scotland to learn how to make whiskey. No one in Japan really wanted whiskey, but our founder knew. He was very much like ahead of his time. He was like, they don't want it now, but we need a Japanese whiskey. And he had a comrade in arms, and got able to learn how to do the whole process from the Scottish people, brought it back, founded Yamazaki, the first ever Japanese whiskey distillery, all based on the information they got from Scotland. So now 100 years down the line, our Scottish blending team, led by Callum Fraser, and our Japanese blending team, led by Shinji Fukuyu, worked together for over 2 years to kind of combine their knowledge, combine their expertise, and create something that is 100% of Scotch. But you get that precision of the Japanese blending that the Japanese blenders have really honed in on over the last 100 years, giving us Yamazaki and Hibiki and Hakushu, all these beautiful Japanese whiskeys that people really are impressed by. This is kind of the love child of both that like Scotland and Japan moment. So even if you look at the bottle, it kind of is meant to represent those things. So you have the lovely texture on the side of the bottle, which is supposed to represent barley in the wind, or the movement of water, and then the triangle is there to represent that precision in Japanese blending. So we wanted that all to kind of be showcased even when you first pick up the bottle. So I think that that's something really awesome.
That's awesome.
So we just launched, which is really exciting, and I've been able to help start to bring it to life here in the US, and I feel very, very lucky to be in this position. But if you haven't had Ardray, I know you have now, but for those people who haven't, we're in LA, New York, London, and Shanghai, but we're starting to do some spreading now that we've been around for about a year. So you'll start seeing it pop up in some places. We're going to be in Chicago, Northern California, DC. I think we're going to be in Massachusetts soon. So there's definitely going to be, you'll start seeing it in more places, but we really wanted to, bring the brand to life in our kind of anchor cities. And then once we kind of figured out the best way to share Ardray with people, now we're spreading it around, and I'm really excited.
Awesome. Well, I'm so excited to be drinking with you today. It's fucking awesome. All right, so you have 2 origin stories. So origin story number 1, how'd you get started in the hospitality business?
Well, we can go back, all the way back to baby Crystal Ann. So I, as my mother likes to tell me, I've always been more expensive for myself. I've been more expensive than anybody can handle. She was like, so when I was 14, I'm one of 7 kids, so there were a lot of other kids who also needed things, but I wanted to go to the movies with my friends, and I wanted to be able to do these things, and so I, at 14, went to all the different places that could potentially hire me, and good old Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Yes.
They were like, if she's gonna get hired somewhere else, we want her here. So shout out to the cook for...
What have you learned? Fresh chicken makes the best chicken.
And that we use 11 herbs and spices.
Oh, but that's the Colonel's secret.
But so yeah, so I started there, worked there for quite some time throughout high school. They were very happy with me, so they allowed my crazy schedule to not dictate whether or not I worked. They found ways to fit me in. And even when I tried to leave a couple of times, they were like, no, you can be our hospitality trainer. And so then I would just go to all the different KFCs and teach people how to be nice about fried chicken. That's how I started.
Very nice.
Humble origins. And then I started kind of expanding from there. I worked at a Chili's, was my first actual restaurant. And that's where I kind of started to learn about bartending and serving in that way. And I worked at a couple of other chains, a Bugaboo Creek. We had some animatronic animals on the wall. Texas Roadhouse. We had their peanuts on the floor and line dancing.
Nice.
So I lived a life. And then at 22, I moved to San Francisco, and I was very, very lucky to have gotten hired as a server at a brand new spot that was opening called Jasper's Corner Tap and Kitchen. And Jasper's was how I became who I am today, which is a funny way to say that, but if I wouldn't have gotten put in that exact space, I don't know if I would have, or I would have taken a very different route. So I was young, and I was on a staff where most of the people on that staff were some of the most talented bartenders in San Francisco at that time, which was about 15-ish years ago. But they were also some of the nicest bartenders you've ever worked with. So Kevin Diedrich was our bar director there, and he had this awesome, badass team of people, including, Allison Weber and Brian McGregor and all these really knowledgeable people, and they wanted everyone to learn. They didn't want it just to be the bartenders who were the gatekeepers. As a server, they wanted to make sure I knew everything, because I'm the one also on the ground selling this to. There's more seats in the dining room and in the lounge than there are at the bar, so they want to make sure that we're knowledgeable, and I'm a little sponge.
Nice.
I was stoked. I remember we were in our initial training, and they made us take a quiz, and by they I mean Kevin made us take a quiz.
Okay.
So we took this quiz, and it was basically just to see where we were. And one of the questions I'll never forget was just name 3 bourbons. I couldn't. I didn't know 3. I worked at a Texas Roadhouse. I was like, I don't know, they don't teach me that there. Right. I knew the menu cocktails, I knew the random normal things people ordered, but I didn't know any of the differences between these things. And
well 1, well 2, and well 3.
Yeah, I was like, whiskey.
Yeah.
But so that was when I really learned. I was like, oh, I know nothing, and there's so much to learn, and I love learning. So I was able to ask all the questions. He would have trainings every Wednesday. I would go to all the trainings. I would be slightly annoying, sorry, because it would be the middle of a Friday night service, and somebody would ask me a question, and I wouldn't know the answer, so I would need to know the answer, and I'd be like, can you please tell me? And they're like, after the shift, we're in the middle of a rush. This is what they need. I'll tell you why later. And I'm like, okay, thank you. But I was so eager and so excited, and I was able to kind of grow in that role, and I don't think I would be here specifically today if I wasn't put in that situation. And once I kind of started learning about liquor, I've always loved Scotland, so Scotch kind of came into that as well. So I would always go to all of the Scotch initiatives and was able to taste some really amazing things and get to really learn a lot, in addition to things with other spirits. But I definitely made sure to make time for all the Scotch ones, because that was always... Even before I knew that it would be my favorite, I knew it was my heart favorite, so I was ready to go.
Awesome.
And then, so I started there, and then I moved to Hawaii for a little bit, and I got to run a fun bar called Tiki and Niki And that was definitely an interesting experience, living on a tiny little island, and you see the same people every day. We were the late night bar because we were open until midnight.
Okay.
So all the other bars and restaurants, like everyone was done with work at 10. So then they would all come over to Tiki and Iki. I joke around that I made way more perfect Manhattans at this tropical island bar than I've ever made at any other bar in my life. But it's because, you know, they didn't necessarily have the same exposure I had living in San Francisco. So when I came, I started like teaching people different things about like even classics. They're all my friends. A lot of us were hospitality people. So then everyone got hooked on some of these Manhattans, these perfect Manhattans, and then we just ran from there.
Nice.
So that was a really fun experience, and I got to learn how to calm down a little bit by living in Hawaii. It doesn't always show, but I promise I'm calmer than I used to be. And then I moved back to San Francisco to kind of get my land legs back, as I say. My main land legs, and I was able to work at this awesome bar called Dirty Habit. We had over 500 whiskeys in house. And that was where I really got to like deep dive and hone in on this love of Scotch that I have. Great at getting in some like really unique, one-off or, you know, very limited release whiskeys. And those were all on the front case. Then we had a wide majority, even just on our back bar. And one of my colleagues and I, Sarah, would always try some of the more elite spirits. Sorry, Brian. On Saturday, we would have our little moments. It's like, how can you sell somebody a $900,000, $1,500 2-ounce pour if you don't know what they taste like or smell like? And so we were always very respectful about it, but like that's where I first got the taste for the creme de la creme, those fancy ones. But it's also where I learned that sometimes just because something's more expensive doesn't mean it's better. And that was like kind of a fun way for me to learn too, that some of those spirits that were really expensive, they were expensive for a reason, and some of them were just expensive because they're hard to get. And some of the cheaper ones, it was nice to be able to find those, like, okay, if you want that, you don't want to spend this, like here. And so it was a really great educational experience for me as well. And then I moved to New York about 8.5 years ago now. I was like, wait, where are we now? And I was lucky enough, I started at a bar called Seamstress on the Upper East Side, and the transition I made here in New York was so easy. Sorry to anybody who's had a hard time, but like I feel so lucky to have been put in that situation. That whole team there took me under their wing and just really made sure that my New York transition was as seamless as it could be. I had a bar that I could call my creative bar space. They introduced me to all the people that they knew, and it was a very involved staff. So it was a really great place to kind of kick off my New York adventure with. And then I bopped around for a bit and did a bunch of different things after Seamstress closed. I worked at Middle Branch. I worked for Hyatt for a while at the bar downstairs in Bar 54. I did some other things as well. I worked for Bulls Geneva. It's my first ever brand job.
Like that's gonna be our origin story number 2. But does New York feel like home, or do you still feel like, again, like maybe West Coast is still calling, or? No,
I grew up in Massachusetts, and I always knew New York was my home. I always knew it was where I wanted to end up. That's part of the reason I moved when I was younger. I was like, I'm young now, let me go adventure, because once I'm in New York, I'm going to be in New York. Or New York and somewhere. Like, New York is always going to be a part of my home, I feel, in my heart of hearts. Yes. But this is the longest I've been in one place without like moving and grooving. I was in, even like now at the amount of time I've been here, longer than I was even in San Francisco. But it's my home. It's always felt, even like as a child, like I would come here and I'd be like, this is where I'm gonna end up.
Awesome. Is it true that you wanted to be more theater background?
So I started, my degree is in theater. I love to sing and I love to perform, and I really had a focus on that. I always kind of joked around that I didn't end up pursuing it because at that time, and things are changing a bit, but it's still a part of that, I didn't fit into a specific niche. I wasn't the ingenue. Like, all the roles I got cast in when I was younger were all things like the mom or like the character actress. But then when I got out of school, I was too young to play those roles in real life. So I always kind of said that I might get back into it, like, as middle-aged Crystal, and we're getting close. So I started taking some voice lessons and getting ready. Who knows? hopefully you'll see me on a stage near you. But if not, part of the reason why I fell in love with this industry is because it allows me to do all those things. I also wanted to be a doctor for a long time, a neuroscientist. I love brains.
Okay.
Not in the zombie way, in like a geeky way. Brains! But so I wanted to be a neuroscientist for a while. I taught for a little bit. I loved doing theater, but for me, the things I like, science, history, storytelling, and performing. And what do you do in our job? When you're behind the bar, you're always on stage, somebody's always watching you. You can like change the entire energy of a room with the way you interact with it. And you can, like, so much of creating booze is scientific. So much of the history of booze and where it all comes from is that. And it's all about storytelling.
Yeah.
So
it's fucking awesome.
I found everything in one place, and confusing to my mom and dad. They were like, wait, you want to be a neuroscientist? Now you're a bartender? And I'm like, but you don't get it.
Yeah.
It's different. I was like, it's different than the ones near home, I promise.
You don't get it.
Yeah, they were always like, no, it's fine, we trust you, but like a little confusing. But yeah, I love it. I love performing, and I love that I get to, especially with Ardray having this arts ethos, I really get to pull in, because so much of our community is similar to me. They're musicians, they're artists, they're creatives, they're writers, they're performers, and our hospitality industry allows them space to kind of use those skills, but also the flexibility to follow their passions and do what they need to do. So being able to do this as a living and then share with all these other creative people and create experiences for the creatives that are so prevalent in my life is something that I think is really exciting and not something you would find in most other jobs. So
awesome.
Shout out to hospitality.
Hospitality. Well then, origin story part 2 then, how, like, again, because like, you mentioned a little bit of jumping to the Geneva side.
Yeah.
And again, being very humble. I mean, Geneva Brand Ambassador of the Year 2019.
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Like,
that was definitely, I feel like, at least for me, I'm just so in my little world, and I know my little world is New York, so it's not that little, but you kind of don't, like, you're just like doing the job and you're running around and I'm excited about it. I always joke around that I've always been a multi lady, starting off with Bowls Geneva as my first ever brand job, part-time. My friend Sean Bucalo, who I actually met, he was on the opening team of Jasper's getting us all open. Like, he worked for Kimpton at the time. So I met him at my first ever, like, at the youngest I've been, like, once I got into the real thing. And then when I moved here, he was working with Lucas Bowles at the time, and reached out to me about the role. And I was like, yeah, let's talk about it. And it was such a great way for me to really integrate, in addition to having that strong team from Seamstress to let me know their room and their people. I was able to also work in this role where I had a reason just to go out and go visit new bars and to see new places, where when you're working in just a bar, behind the bar, even if it's, or if you're working 2 bars, whatever it is, you're behind those bars. Yeah. Then on your days off, you don't necessarily always want to go out to another bar. Maybe you do every once in a while, but this was nice because half of my job was working at Seamstress my 3-4 nights a week, and then half my job was going out. And so it gave me much more of a view of what, in totality, the New York bar scene was, and was allowed me to kind of integrate in a different way, in that way, which I really appreciate. And I also love being a little geeky, and Geneva's a very geeky, historic spirit. But the amount of people you can get hyped on it, wild. Yeah. Like, it was funny, like, I still to this day will sometimes have friends, and like, there have been a bunch of great Bowls Geneva ambassadors behind me, after me, I'm sure, but at the time, like, people would be like, like, still to this day, people would be like, saw another bottle of Bulls, wonder, like, you know, you're like, it just like always makes them think of me in that way. And now, you know, then I went to single malt scotches with Bacardi. Post-pandemic, I was trying to figure out what the best point of action for me. I had a bunch of life changes happening. We had just had this huge global pandemic, and I was like, okay. And I was like, you know what? I love scotch, and I love, like, the brand life, so let me see what I can do. And at that time, luckily, Bacardi was hiring for a single malts ambassador, and my friends Gareth and Arena, who were working for the company at the time, well, still are working for the company, just Garrett's are the national ambassador for, North American ambassador for Bacardi single malts. Okay. Arena, I don't know what she's doing now, but nonetheless, they were the ones, they were like, wait, Crystal, and I was literally applying for the job like that night. Like I was at my day job, and I was like, I'm gonna apply tonight, and they reached out and they were like, hey, we think, and I was like, that's so funny. I also thought I might be.
Yeah. You are correct.
I was like, wow, great minds. Yeah. And then I was lucky enough to get the job after even being interested in it, and that was where my Sassy Chasse, the single malt lassie time started.
Okay.
And I got to really get out there and excite people about Scotch and start my journey of what I've always done behind the bar, trying to get people to drink Scotch in different ways and enjoy it and not be afraid of it. I was able to do that full time, and wow, what a wonderful experience.
That's awesome.
I felt so grateful. The whole team, the Bacardi La Gran Familia, fantastic people. It was an amazing team to work on. Everyone so cared about each other, and that was what was like so prevalent. Like we all wanted everyone to do well. It was none of it. It was just such a great space to really get my full-time feet into the brand world. And then I heard about this Ardray job through a few friends. And while I still loved my job at Bacardi, having the opportunity to launch a brand new Scotch was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So I had to apply and had to see what it was like, and I wanted it, they wanted me, and it worked out pretty quickly, and here I am now.
There we go. Kismet.
Yeah. I've always loved opening bars and restaurants and being a part of that, and like, never in my wildest dreams did I think that I would be able to do that with a Scotch, since most of them have been around since,
God knows.
you know, 1900s. Like, such a wonderful, life-changing experience, and I feel really grateful to be a part of it.
That's awesome. Well, there we go.
There we are.
That's a shit ton of question one origin story.
Oh, sorry. I know.
No, my fault. But cheers.
Let's edit that.
Question two, drink two. What are we drinking?
So I really like to make drinks where I introduce people to new spirits by tricking them. But in the kindest way possible. I'm tricking them because I want them to have a fuller life experience. And I know that sometimes trying new things for certain people can be a little daunting. So what I like to do is create a cocktail that reminds them of a cocktail that's a good, safe cocktail for them, but with a little extra zhuzh.
Okay.
So for this cocktail, I did kind of a cross between a penicillin and a spicy mezcal margarita.
Okay.
So you're gonna have our Ardray Scotch, obviously.
Nice.
We have a bit of Agua Mágica mezcal.
Okay.
We have some fresh pineapple juice, lemon juice, some hot honey, and a little bit of ginger liqueur.
Okay.
So rather than doing like a ginger honey syrup like they would usually do, we have both the ginger spice and then that hot honey chili spice. So you really get that nice melding of both cocktails. And if somebody's a spicy tequila drinker, they'll go for this and get exposed. So
awesome. Cheers.
Cheers. Yeah.
Oh.
Like, for me, it's just crushable. You know what I mean? But it's got that right amount of spice and that balance of the different types of spice. Same way, like you can, on a Scotch, you can have those different levels of smoke, depending on where the peat is from and things like that. Like, obviously, we have so many different places we get spice from. So layering them together rather than having all of the spice come from ginger or all the spice from chili is really a nice way to meld things together, the same way the mezcal and the Scotch really meld together. So I'm all about broadening horizons with
that is awesome. That is
a little tropical spice moment.
That is awesome.
Thank you. I'm glad you like it.
I do. I love it. Like that. Oh, the mezcal and then the Ardray and then the nutmeg. Oh, just
Yeah, you can eat a little nutmeg. Shout out to my boy Luis Fernandez. He wanted to put nutmeg on everything when we worked together at Seamstress. So now every once in a while, every single time I put nutmeg on a drink, I'm like, this is for Luis. So nutmeg for Luis.
Yeah, it's just, like you said, it's crushable. Like I could drink that all fucking night. Like, and again, you don't even. It's just so well balanced too. Like you don't get that. Like you said, the surprise for someone to be like, I don't like Scotch or whatever, or I don't like mezcal, but like it's just, and the hot honey. Oh,
And the cool thing is too with the like flavors from the whiskey, you're gonna get some more of those vanilla, those caramel notes, which are really, really lovely. Like think about like a caramel brulee or a caramel a pineapple upside down cake. Like you're gonna get some of that from like the vanillas and caramels that you get in the Ardray. But then the mezcal, you get some of those earthier notes, which also play on some of the herbaceous notes there. So they just really work well together.
So
it makes
good.
and then you get the two different smokes, a little mezcal smoke and the little peaty, but like. I think all of the things we use were mellow enough and played well enough with others that you don't lose anything. It's not like one or the other overpowers. I think they all really just...
And then the hot honey. Like that just, like you said, the smokes, but then you get that heat from the
And the nice thing is too, we like live in an age where like I use Mike's hot honey in here because I had it and I know it's consistent. It's not like I have to go get all these different things and it's just the same way I would make any other honey syrup. Add a little bit of warm water and mix it all up together, so it's like a nice way to kind of add a little extra zhuzh. Yeah. But without extra work, which is always nice.
That's like, what's perfect. Like that, jumping into like fall, or summer does fall right now, and like,
it's that nice blend of the two seasons too. Yeah, we're getting up there. It's like, we're just getting into Virgo season. Yeah. Ready for it, but it's still a little warm at the beginning. It's warm at the beginning of it, but then you start getting those nice crisp nights, followed by crisp days, and it moves from there. And I think that this is a beautiful cocktail for this transitional time.
Yes, and New York has been giving us fake fall, so like this has been awesome. So I give cheers.
Cheers! I'm so glad you like it.
All right, so question 2. Can you please explain to us what a brand curator is versus a brand ambassador and how the two roles are different in the industry?
Yeah, so honestly, I know that I'm a brand curator. I don't know if anybody else, other than my counterparts with Ardray, have that exact title, but how I've kind of perceived it, I'm helping launch something brand new. Ardray just was created and is now able to be a part of this world, and I, along with my team, get to curate how it comes to life and market. We had our beautiful blenders from Scotland and Japan create this, but obviously they're busy blending some of the tastiest whiskeys out there. So they're not the ones that are gonna be out there getting people excited about it, and I feel so lucky that that's what I get to do. So I get to kind of curate how it comes to life. So through that, there's no set programming, it's a brand new thing. I've been able to create a lot of our programming and master classes and how we want to focus on the messaging that was already created for Ardray, but how that comes to life in New York and beyond. Right now we're in LA, New York, London, and Shanghai, but we're starting to do some radial spreading as we're coming up on our 1-year launch anniversary. And I'm just really excited I've tested a lot of these in New York, which is a really hard market to test things in sometimes. There's a lot of competition. There's a lot of beautiful spirits out there. There's a lot of
snobs.
There's a lot of snobs. There's a lot of brand folks too, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so like to be able to kind of find ways to not only create programming that supports Ardray and the messaging that we're creating from that, but also creating something that's really beneficial to our hospitality community. I come from the bar side of things, as we talked about, but I really like being able to create things from my knowledge of what I knew I needed and what I assume other people might need, and make them fun and beneficial to them outside of just Ardray. So I think that that's something that you can get really creative with and get people excited about and create those memories. And once you have those wonderful moments, then you can kind of build on that. So right now we're in the creating wonderful moments and getting people exposed phase.
Love it.
So I'm curating those moments. But yeah, that makes me really happy. We have a really lovely arts ethos around the brand as well. We focus a lot on the artistry of blending, which I think is the main focus of like part of our mission is, getting people to rediscover that blenders are the magicians of it all. They're the artists of it all. They're the conductors of the orchestra. You know what I mean? They're finding all the beautiful things and finding the right way for them to melt together, just like we got to do with the cocktail. And that's what they did with the actual spirit. So it's already been all that time and effort and love into that. And now, we get to play with that even further. But they were thinking about this aspect of it, even though they were making this. So that's kind of my outlook as well. It's like guiding what we're doing now, but also what other people might take it into their hands and do with it. I want people to get creative with it and have that creativity and that feeling that they can kind of do slightly outrageous things.
Gotcha.
with it. Like, I think there's a lot of rules that people think are associated with Scotch.
Yeah.
I don't follow them. I do what I want because it's booze, and you should be able, like, yes, I trust that the liquor is beautiful, but that doesn't mean that I can't share it in different ways.
Okay.
We can't expect everyone to enjoy a 48% non-chill filtered Scotch neat when they're usually a spicy tequila drink, a spicy mezcal, spicy margarita drinker.
Yeah.
Like, we can't expect their palate to be ready for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Unless that's something else they're also drinking on the side. But I think it's really lovely to be able to give people the chance to experience something and not feel guilty about not having it the right way.
Gotcha.
Making cocktails with it, doing split-based cocktails, you're still getting your sense of taste acclimated to the flavor of Scotch because it's not lost. It's still a part of that journey. And then as you have it more and more, you'll be able to hopefully one day enjoy it in its neat form.
Yeah.
But until then, I'll
Baby
keep
steps.
drinking some of these mezcal Ardray margaritas.
Agreed. How big is the team here in the New York? Or
New York is
global? Or?
Yeah, so global, since we only launched in LA, New York, London, and Shanghai to begin. So there's a curator in each of those markets.
Okay.
We have Rich Varga out in LA, we have Steph Peck, and she's based in UK, and then Jia Wei is our Shanghai ambassador.
Okay.
And then we have our global team, so some of the people who help make it, and then a lot of the people who are also on our Scotch team, and then our North American team too. So there's definitely people, but a lot of them are also focused on our other Scotches as well, but there are the four of us curators who are Ardray is our entire heart and soul of our job. Yeah.
Okay, awesome. That's question 2.
Question 2.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Question 3, drink 3.
Bam, bam.
What are we drinking?
This is one of my absolute favorite cocktails in
Okay.
general. I'm a big Martinez fan.
Very nice, very nice.
It started back in my Geneva times.
Okay.
Might have heard of it earlier
Yeah.
today. But so when I like to go to other bars, I mentioned briefly, I'll usually say, hey, what's your favorite cocktail? And then ask them to make it with Scotch.
Okay.
So I do it with some of my favorite cocktails. Martinez is one of those. So this is a Martinez, but sometimes you add a little zhuzh. So I infuse the Ardray with some fig leaf. And in addition to beautiful method sweet vermouth and some maraschino and some tango bitters, I also use a little fig and orange bitters, which are really lovely to kind of round out that flavor as well. But so it's a really lovely fall
Cheers.
Scotch Martinez.
Oh, that's fucking awesome.
I tapped it on the table.
Yeah,
right there.
yeah.
I know. Classy.
Oh.
Yeah. The fig definitely, like that had been sitting, like I had strained it, but it's still incorporated more.
Yeah.
Because you can, the lovely thing about fig and like tea and things like that when you're using them in cocktail, you can do like a really quick infuse, you just do a little more, so,
That's just nice. Like,
yeah. But then if you let it sit a little longer, the same way as like if you let a blended anything sit, it marries together. So the flavor of the fig with the Ardray, I think, really married well together. This is actually, I mentioned I made some of these for another excursion recently, and I put the fig in for there, and this was kind of the leftover from that, and I was like, perfect, I would have loved to showcase that. So, but it is wild, the difference between today's fig and the fig the other day. Yeah. It really did just like meld well.
Yeah, no, this is just wow, like this is amazing.
And this doesn't stray too much from what people I think expect from a Scotch drink. It's still basically a Rob Roy.
Yeah.
But we add a little of that maraschino, so you add a little bit of that sweetness. Maraschino also has a really lovely floral quality to it. I love florals, as we learned with the light sheet earlier.
Yeah.
I think that Ardray itself has some really lovely orchard fruit notes and some floral notes, so that works really nicely and blends well. The fig leaf has that like vanilla in quality. Honestly though, I recently had a Sakura leaf Ardray cocktail, and Sakura and fig leaf have really similar flavor profiles.
Okay.
You're still learning every day.
Coconut?
And it's coconutty, it's a little coconutty, vanilla-y, and like the Sakura also had that same sort of vibe. So I feel like this really is a great example, and you can do, like, play around. Infusing spirits takes as little as a minute, as long as, you know, depending on, you can use a smaller amount and let it sit longer. Like for the whiskey that's in here, I used a larger amount and I did it faster. But then this had been sitting without the fig leaf in it, but with the flavor influence in it for a couple of weeks. And now it's just so viscous and round.
Yeah, it's fucking amazing.
Yeah.
Cheers.
I love it.
This is fucking perfect.
Thank
All right. So question 3, we call it our talking shit segment because we've had 3 drinks, so we're a little bit more. But what trend or rule are you most excited about in the whiskey industry, and how does Ardray help push that forward?
So I would say, like, I know I've mentioned this already, but I hate how prescriptive people are, especially with Scotch.
Yeah.
And I feel like for so many years, everyone was like, you're ruining it. Oh, you're putting ice in it? You're ruining it.
Yeah.
Like, and people are like, oh, when I go to Scotland, if I ask for ice, they laugh at me. And I'm like,
They don't.
you don't. Like, when did you go to Scotland? Like, I've been to Scotland. And sometimes, like, but it happens here in the US too. Like, I recently went to a bar and they had a spritz on the menu, as we had earlier.
Yeah.
Not this exact one, but it was like peach melon. And I was like, oh, all of those flavors will go perfectly with Ardray. Let me see if I'll, like, do an Ardray enhanced version of the spritz. And the guy was like, are you sure you don't want an old fashioned if you're going to do a cocktail with the Scotch? And I was like, oh, no, I don't want an old fashioned. I want a spritz with Scotch. But, like, I think that when you go into a bar, if you order a Scotch, their first question, guilty myself, do you want it neat or on the rocks?
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I feel like that really is making people, like, I've never scolded anyone. I'm always like, drink it how you want to drink it, but that's my biggest thing. Overarching, not just with Scotch, but in general. Drink it how you want to drink it. Don't let people bully you. I think we can train our palates. I think that people who maybe think they don't like anything can do with a little experimentation. Do with drinking things that maybe don't taste like a 10 out of 10 right off the bat, but like our palates learn.
Yep.
We're very malleable creatures. There's all those neurotransmitters in our brain that learn things. Like our brains are elastic, you know, that neuroplasticity is an actual thing.
Yeah.
So like you can train your brain. I talk about this a lot of times. I have a whole, I've been doing this a lot. I have a whole master class that's on flavor perception, flavor pairing, and I think that for so long we thought about like very classic flavor pairings, and that was and my whole thing about it was like, okay, well, have you ever tried it with X, Y, and Z type of food? I like to do them in interesting spaces. I like to do them with foods that aren't classically served with Scotch. Cocktails are also flavor pairings. You're pairing the flavor of the Scotch with the ingredients that you're putting in the cocktail, and there's a way to enhance all of those, but sometimes thinking outside of that box, I think, is what we really need to do. And I think that's a trend that is out there. I think that people are making many more savory cocktails, which is kind of thinking outside that box. I think people are using different ingredients and different types of base spirits and like alternative spirits in their cocktails. And that's kind of the trend that like I would love to see thrive, while the people who give you dirty looks because you ordered a cocktail, they can all go suck it.
Yeah.
That's my adult language.
Yeah, there you go. Suck it. Yeah. like, get out of here. Yeah.
Who's telling me how I should drink? At the end of the day, my mouth is used to certain things, and I like certain things. Sometimes I want to test myself, and sometimes I want to expand that horizon. Other times I just want the thing I know. Sometimes I just want a beer and a shot.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie to you about it. Other times I want like a bright and exciting cocktail. Like, I came from cocktail bars. Yeah, my people playing. But I just think that we should all be drinking the way we want to drink, but also I do encourage people to kind of stretch their palates. The people who say like, oh, I don't like those things, I'm like, okay, you don't like them now, but scientifically, when we're born, the only 2 flavors that our palate accepts are sweet and salty.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen a baby eat? It's messy as shit.
Yeah.
There's food everywhere, they're making faces, like it's like a disaster, but that's because their palate isn't used to it.
Yeah, find out what you like.
Yeah, like bitter things, our palate thinks they're poison.
Yeah.
That's why things were bitter originally, to tell us that they were poison.
Yeah.
And we're like, oh, we shouldn't eat that. That's going to kill me, or might kill me. And now we know the bitter things that will kill us and the bitter things that won't kill us. But like, our palate doesn't know that, so you've got to train it. I joke around all the time that like whipped myself into shape to be a bartender during my years in San Francisco. Because I would work my crazy hours, and I would have my like double Friday, my double Saturday, my double Sunday. Never again. But back then I was ready. And so Sunday night I would always go over to Rye Bar in San Francisco, and I would hang out with my boys, and I would make myself drink Campari. I'd be like, guys, I need a Campari orange juice to start. They're like, you don't like it. And I was like, I know. But I need to like it because I heard all the bartenders around me liking that. I heard them all liking Fernet. I heard them all liking Amaros. I heard them all liking these bitter things. So if all these established people who I trust and look up to can drink these, I can drink them too. Yeah. I don't expect everyone to go out and spend their hard-earned money to drink drinks they don't like. Yeah. But like, if you're offered something, try it. Or maybe even expand your horizons. Do spend that money. Maybe do it at home so you don't spend as much as you would at a bar. But like, you know, I started off on Campari and orange juice, and then I went to an Americano, and then I went to a Negroni, and I started not only being able to accept the bitter, I was able to find nuance in it. I was able to find the layers, all the things that people would talk about. When I would drink those things, I'd be like, don't get that. But that's because my palate wasn't used to it.
Right.
I'd never been exposed to bitter flavors. So exposing myself to different flavors and exposing people to different flavors through cocktails, I think is a great way to kind of get your palate ready for when you do have that big, bold moment. Like, and that's kind of what's fun about a blended scotch. We have so many different types of flavors that are layered in there but not lost.
No.
And so it plays so well. Like I always say, like it plays well with others.
Well, and again, like
just like if you bring your dog to the dog party, they're like, oh, it plays well with others.
We're friendly,
yeah. That's Ardray.
Yeah, but like getting those flavors, because again, every cocktail came out so far with a different flavor, more pronounced than the others. Like you still get those, but like. Now, like here with the fig, we're getting a lot more salty and a little bit more.
Yeah, the salt is wild on this one. I didn't even add saline.
Yeah. Because
once you let it kind of do its own thing, it didn't need it. Because sometimes when I'm doing a martinis, I love to add saline to a lot of things. Just like you add salt to you add salt to food is better. Why would I not add salt to drinks? So I add saline to a lot of things.
Yeah, as you can see, I hated it.
I didn't add any saline to this because like when the flavor already, like the saline from the whiskey came out, which is beautiful.
Yeah. Well, there we go. That's question 3. We didn't talk that much shit.
I'll talk shit.
Yeah.
No, I'm not really a shit talker. I'm all about, if I am talking shit, I'm like, this is what I don't like, and here's how we should work on it.
It's great.
I like to be a positive poly. It's more my vibe.
I know, and I get it. Like, I love it because there's no one ever really talks shit because again, we're a small industry.
Yeah.
And again, I don't want anybody to talk shit about it, but like, there's sometimes when some people just go off on some stuff, and it's
my biggest thing that I go off on is people who think that I shouldn't be doing what the hell I want with my booze.
Which is
not necessarily a trend. It's more people's personality. I'm like, don't judge me for doing what I want with my booze. At the end of the day, booze is fun.
Yeah. And again, I always tell, I bring the questions, you bring the drinks. However you answer, that's up to you. So,
well, I'm glad that it's all working out.
Then there we go.
Cheers.
Question 4, drink 4.
Whew.
Looks like we got a shit ton of drinks. What are we drinking?
Well, since it was drink 4, question 4, I thought I would bring the 4 component pieces of Ardray and Ardray.
Perfect.
4 for 4. 4 by 4.
Yeah.
Connect 4. Connect 4.
Yeah.
Connect 4 is a great game. Maybe I'll make a Connect 4. Because at the end of the day, this is where the ideas come from. Watch out for an Ardray Connect 4 coming out.
And a triangle, instead of going 4, we got to build the triangle.
I know. We'll make it happen. But so what I brought here, I think it's really cool that not only do we have the opportunity with Ardray to enjoy a variety of distilleries in one full whiskey, but I love that our blending team not only was like, okay, we need to make one final product. They're like, no, let's make 4 perfect products and then blend those 4 perfect products together to make our actual perfect final product, perfect in our eyes. You know what I mean? Like, because they really did spend over 2 years, over 200 different variations of Ardray to become what you will get in this final bottle. And I think that that's really wonderful.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like, spend the time. This is something that will hopefully be here for generations to come. Here on the Ardray bottle, we actually have our logo, and it looks like an A, but with an extra line. It's designed to look like perspective railroad tracks.
Okay.
Our founder, Shinjiro Tori of Suntory, and he actually, in his personal journal, had drawn a really beautiful sketch of perspective railroad tracks, and next to it had a quote that basically, excuse me for not knowing the exact quote off the top of my head, but summed down to like, you need to guide the future and learn from the past. So his whole thing is, if there's a guide, if you're moving forward and there's a guide moving forward, then you'll always make it to your final destination, no matter what the struggles and strikes are. So it's been kind of his dream and his focus with the entire company along ways to do things that might be a little bit ahead of its time in order to kind of be ready for that next time.
Okay.
So we talked about this earlier, Japanese whiskey in general wasn't wanted when he decided to start his distillery, but we know now that Japanese whiskey is some of the hardest whiskey to get, depending on what you're doing.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of the same outlook we want to take with creating a blended scotch in this time of single malt scotches, and so we get to represent that there. But they're really into also that perfection, that precision blending. So in order to achieve that, we've precision blended our grain whiskey, our more delicate malts, which are going to be some of our younger malts and things aged in our American oak barrels, our more robust malts, which are going to be some of our sherry finished whiskeys and some of the older whiskeys. You can already tell the difference in colors, wild. Yeah, and then the final one is our smoky piece. So you'll notice on Ardray, we've had in these cocktails, you've tasted a little bit of that smoke. Now we will taste the full thing neat, but before they even put all of these whiskeys neat, they perfectly balance them in the building blocks, and then they take those 4 building blocks and build them together.
Okay.
Cool thing is too, a lot of blended scotches have a large array of whiskeys in them, which isn't bad in any way, shape, or form. They have like 40, 50, 60 different whiskeys, and it's all about consistency, which is very important in whiskey nowadays. But with Ardray, we really wanted to create something where you still get that distillery characteristic. Our beautiful blending team chose these whiskeys because of their distillery characteristic, and if we mix them with 40 other whiskeys, you would lose some of that distillery characteristic. So Ardray's first batch only has 11 different whiskeys, including 2 grain whiskeys in it. Okay. So it's a really low number, and it's really so you can still get the distillery characteristic showing without having to, like, you're masking it, you're combining it with all these other flavors. You're not trying to use a variety of flavors to get one cohesive flavor. We want a lot of those layers, and so we still get them by creating these 4 building blocks and then blending those all together for this. Another cool thing about Ardray too is that we have a Solera system. So if you look at this bottle, on here it says release date 2023. So this is our first ever batch of Ardray. Okay. 2023 was the first year we were launched, and I think that's really cool that we have it on there. What a piece of history to have. Yeah, that's awesome. I'm hoping that Ardray will be one of those things that down the line will be like, oh my God, you have that. Yeah. Like you have one of, but I will say I'm not an advocate for hoarding whiskey. If you're gonna hoard whiskey, 1 to drink, 1 to save.
Yeah, 1 to rock, 1 to stock. That's
1 to rock, 1 to stock. Like that's what I mean. Like don't ever get a whiskey and never drink it because that's wild.
Yeah.
What a wild thing to do. Even vintage whiskey.
Yeah. No,
you've got to drink it. Yeah, it's a piece of history. You've got to do it. I know it's a consumable vintage, but you got to do it. Yeah. But so 2023, cool thing about it, only 50% of the whiskey that they made for this 2023 batch was even bottled. Oh. The rest of it is still in Scotland, in Glasgow, for our Solera system. So they saved pieces of all 4 of our building blocks and of our full product. And so when they were blending our 2024 blend, before allowing it to marry with all of these, they actually blended that all together with all of the 2023 building blocks, and then took all those building blocks and blended those from the 2024 blend. So basically creating a Solera system of sorts for our whiskey. So there's always a piece of that past moving towards the history or towards the future. Like our history is a part of the future at all points. And I think that that's really cool. I think that it helps with that consistency of flavor. I think that it helps a lot with also just like knowing where things come from. I think we also, with Scotch, love to be like, I can taste it. I know the 1995, 1997, whatever. I can taste it. We can't.
Yeah.
We can't taste it.
You can't.
Maybe like 1 out of 8 million billion people. That's a specific number.
Yeah.
8 million billion people can taste it.
Yeah.
Most of us cannot taste it.
Yeah.
And we say we find it because we feel like we should. So our whole thing is that the sum is greater than the individual
Yeah.
parts. So part of the reason we don't tell you what's in it is because right now we know what's in it, but then 5 years down the line, we've gone through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, however many blends. Now you're gonna have all those whiskeys in there, and the percentages are gonna be wild. But also because at the end of the day, the sum is greater than the individual parts. Why do I need to tell you that there's this much of it in it for you to enjoy it? You can enjoy it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Without and like I think that kind of gives you a little bit of like I think with whiskey, we, especially whiskey nerds like ourselves.
Well, my biggest pet peeve is always when someone picks up and they're like, I smell banana. And then everybody's like, oh, I smell banana. I'm like, you just fucking ruined it for everybody. Like, you told them what they needed to smell because you smelled it. So, yeah.
And that's the thing, it's like, none of these things are wrong, but we all have different neural memories. We have all those different neural pathways that we've created with the flavors that we've been exposed to. The flavors that you were given as a child and I was given as a child and I grew up with and you grew up with. And then as adults we had, and then they adult, and then we traveled here. And we did, like, all of those things culminate in our own palate, in our own brain.
Yeah.
And it's not that you're not tasting the same thing. It's just that you haven't created that connection between the actual smell or flavor and the actual space in your brain with a word.
Yeah.
You're still tasting all the same things, even if you don't get walnut off the bat.
Right.
The walnut flavor is there, you just didn't place it as walnut.
Yeah.
You're still experiencing it. So I don't think it lowers anything by not telling people what it is. I think it allows you to really experience it in your own space. And that's our whole thing. Our whole thing is about creativity and the artistry of things. So like, be your own artist, find your own things, find what works, like what you're finding is pulling out, then work around that with whatever you're pairing it with food-wise or what you want to make a cocktail with it. But I think that's really cool. So for drink 4, 8 minutes later, we have our 4 component parts. So your first glass is going to be our grain whiskey. So this is going to be both corn and wheat. They are all cast strength. I'm just letting you know. We do have water if you need it, but they're all cast strength because this is before they're blended and then watered down. And I think people shit talk grain whiskey all the time, which is funny to me because what's American whiskey?
Grain whiskey.
First off, barley's also a grain, so that's wild to me. But like, yeah, grain whiskey, corn and wheat. This is what makes American whiskey. So why are we gonna shit talk it just because it's made in Scotland? We're not.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Yeah, I'm not.
Good.
No.
That was actually me trying to catch you.
Yeah, it's good. Because I'm scared of shit. So yeah.
Yeah, no, but so like the grain whiskey is great.
Oh, that's nice.
And like for us, I think people also.
Yeah.
People often think that grain whiskey, so good, as it like opens up in your, like that it's lesser than. Yes, is it faster, more financially responsible to make it? Sure, but for us, the grain whiskey is just as important as the malt whiskeys.
Yeah.
We are inspired by those earlier 20th century malts, so we're going to be more malt rich compared to some other blended scotches that have more of that grain whiskey. We have over 50% malt whiskey in here, but the grain whiskey is just as important as the malt whiskey to our team. So making sure that this blend of malt whiskey, of this grain whiskey was perfect, was just as important as making sure that the malt pieces were perfect as well.
Awesome.
Next up we have our, I like to call them the softer whiskeys or the younger whiskeys, more delicate malts. Delicate malts, I think is what I was originally introduced to them as. But basically these are going to be some of the younger whiskeys in the blend. Ardray doesn't have an age statement, but the average age of the whiskey is about 15 years.
Okay.
We don't have an age statement because with an age statement, everything in this bottle would have to be X amount of years or older.
Okay.
As it's average 15 years, like let's say we chose 15 years. Then everything in that bottle would have to be 15 years or older. Without that rule, we have whiskeys from anywhere to 7 to 20 plus years in this blend. And some of these younger whiskeys, which we're experiencing here.
Oh, that's nice.
These are more some of our American oak. These are some of the younger whiskeys. You get more of those floral notes. You get more of the orchard fruits. You get some of those more delicate notes that in the blend balance out some of the bigger and bolder and older notes. And if we only had things 15 years or older, it would be a much more robust blend. This is a much more nuanced blend because we have the older and the younger.
Beautiful.
even better. Yeah.
Yeah.
So next up we have some of our older whiskeys and some of our, as you can tell from the color, some of our sherry aged
That's
whiskeys. So
awesome.
you're going to get definitely more of that raisinated flavor here. And all of these could work in theory by themselves, but they were designed to be a part of this final product.
Oh, that's nice.
This is really big. This is really like, it's got like a good oily characteristic. You get a lot of those raisinated notes.
Yeah.
I could probably not drink as many of these as I could. I know you haven't had it neat by yet. Some of like the neat Ardray. While it's delicious, while it's perfectly balanced for what it is, I kind of love the balance that comes from all of them together.
Yeah.
I will say last but not least though, I will say a lot of things. I've said a lot of things on a show.
Cheers.
But Smoky's my favorite. I'm a smoky girl, I'm a peaty girl, and but I understand why people are not smoky peaty people. But this peaty one,
It's not so peaty though.
no. And that's what I like about it. So an Ardray, which we'll taste very soon, the peat for me, unlike some of the bigger, bolder Isla whiskeys where the peat is the star of the show, the peat on Ardray is so much more a very lovingly strong, supportive character. I feel like it is like a veil that fits in all the nooks and crannies, and it supports all the other flavors, but it's not the star of the show.
Yeah.
I will drink a star of the show peaty scotch any day, but I understand also that most people are a little scared of peat.
Yeah.
Unless you're a scotch drinker, peat, that smoky quality is what you associate with scotch and what's a little scary. And I think that Ardray really sits in a beautiful place where we can introduce people to that peat without it being offensive, for lack of a better word, or overwhelming. I think that it really does a good way of playing well with others. And you can tell that even from the blend that they have here.
That is super nice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also like, what I love about Ardray is that it introduces people to that peat without being overwhelming.
Yeah.
So let's go to our Ardray.
So excited.
And I'm not even, but like, I literally dance when I'm happy, but like, I'm not dancing just because it's my whiskey.
It's so nice.
It's not, I don't know, but like, I get to share it.
It's so nice.
You get? Do you taste all the different
Yes,
components?
now like, and then even like going back now with cocktails, like you're like, fuck, like that's where
Your palate is open to it,
yeah.
Like the vanillas, you get where the saline comes from, you get where the herbaceousness comes from, you can find it between all the pieces, but then especially in the final piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fuck.
Question 4.
I know.
Ardray, 4 parts, 4 building blocks. Question 4.
Love it. Well, all right. So question 4 comes from our friend Kelly Rivers. So she wants to know.
Tell me about it.
Again, as a theater nerd.
Yes.
If there was a play, TV show, movie about your life.
Okay.
What would the experience be called, and who would play you in said experience?
I'm going to tell you a story. I love that all classic cocktails came from the theater. Not all. A lot of them came from the theater. And I have made it kind of another mission of mine, other than people drinking scotch in cocktails, to like kind of at some point, when I get to the point where I can like make that type of change, to hopefully help influence and change. Like, because when you go to a theater now, no offense to anybody making drinks in a theater, but it's very sugary. It's very like a lot of blue curacao, not a balance of blue curacao. Like, it's just always something that like sort of fits the vibe, but isn't it? Back in the day, the reason why we have a Robert Roy, the reason why we have so many of these cocktails is because of theaters. So I would love to have the whole experience be a really immersive experience, similar to like right now Cabaret has a whole bar experience with their thing. I would love to be, my show would be something similar. All the drinks would be very much out there. It would be a musical.
All right.
No questions asked. Sarah Bareilles would be writing said musical. Sarah, she's my favorite. Like, most talented, like her songwriting, her vocal prowess, her creative quality, her human quality. Like, really, for me, that's what makes it. She did write the musical Waitress.
I was gonna say that's the waitress lady.
She is the waitress lady. But she also has done a million other things. I've always been obsessed with her. I think that she is so insanely talented. So she would definitely be writing it. I think that either Sutton Foster or Idina Menzel,
Alright.
both of them are like queens.
Alright.
But this is a question where I get to live in a fantasy land. So either one of them would play me, or I would play me, and they would be a part of it. I don't know. Maybe I would play me.
I was gonna say.
I would play me.
There you
No,
go.
I'm just kidding. You can't do that. That's
Yeah,
not how
you
shows
can.
go. I would play, like, this is gonna happen after I'm dead, but I would play me. No. Or like Idina Menzel and Sutton Foster, both are just badass, talented women who continually evolve, and that's what I love about them. Like, they've gone through all their qualities of life where they've been in shows where they were the younger women, and like, I think that as a woman or as a person in general, like, as you get older, sometimes you're like, what is my work? What am I doing? In our hospitality industry and the theater industry, I think that's an overarching theme. Like, when you start to get a little older, you're like, where do I fit in? What is my niche? And I think that both of them have really done a great job of continuously growing with their world and with themselves and with their age and playing different roles that fit all those different things. And I hope to be able to do that in my life. So I would hope that my theatrical endeavor of my life would show that. But it would be fun as shit. It would be a lot of singing and dancing. I love to dance.
Perfect.
It would be a musical.
Name?
Oh, it would have Sassy in the name.
Yeah. Sassy Sips or Sippin' Sassy or something like that.
Sippin' Sassy, Sassy Scotch. But yeah, no, I don't know exactly what it'd be. I'll work on a name.
Alright, we'll get back.
WIP.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that Sassy Chasse, or just be Sassy Chasse if it's about me.
Yeah, there you go.
If it's about me, then
Sassy
it's
Chasse works perfectly.
I think that's great.
Well, and again, there's people that go see The Waitress across the United States, and I think they're called the Pie Tins. I'm not sure.
That makes sense.
What would your theme group be called?
You knew that people were Pie Tin?
I have a friend who is
He is a Pie Tin?
He is a Pie Tin.
Oh,
so
wow. I didn't even know
shout
that.
out to James. But yeah, so
Good job, James.
Yeah.
James, let's hang out. And I would say, would they be the Sassafrasses?
I don't know, but you tell
I feel like they would be the Sassafrasses.
All right.
Because like I'm Sassy Chasse, and while I'm Crystal and I'm my professional things, at the end of the day, what I think I love to resonate with is like I'm a human. I think that sometimes brand people, I have a lot of wonderful brand people in my life, and I'm not saying this is a general thing, but like sometimes, especially when you're younger, like they all seem like these like untouchable things. But like for me, I'm like, Sassy Chasse, I'm here, let's have a good time. Like, and I feel like that's what's kind of fun. I'm like, no, let's fuck around, let's have a good time, let's like learn and have like experiment together, and that's kind of my thing. It's like I like to make people feel comfortable, and because that's what hospitality is to me.
Sure.
Not that any, like everyone else is doing that. Like there's everyone doing it in their own way, but for me it's like that very like magnetic kind of like come into my little.
Yeah.
So I think being a little sassafras with me would be
I love it.
great.
I love it. Cheers.
Cheers.
Question 5, drink 5.
Question 5. Drink 5.
Last drink of the night. What are we drinking?
We're drinking Ardray off the rocks.
All right.
So when you go order a whiskey, what's the first question they ask you?
Neat or
on the rocks.
Yeah.
So I'm not gonna lie. The first time I heard about this setup, I was like, Bob from marketing made this up. And then the first time I drank this, I was like, Bob from marketing deserves a raise. Wherever it is. Thank you, Bob from marketing. But so this is called Ardray off the rocks.
Okay.
Here's the thing: when you order a Scotch, we want you to have a fresh perspective in it in a lot of different ways, but let's start basic. When you order a Scotch, they ask you neat or on the rocks, and we're like, but if it's neat, 48% non-chill filtered for some people, a little much, and you get certain flavors with that. You get it on the rocks, surprise, I like to talk. I'm sure there are other people who also like to talk, and so I often end up with a whiskey that's just a water whiskey.
Yeah.
A water whiskey. It's a whiskey that all the ice is melted because I was chit-chatting with you, and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And I look down, and not that it's bad, but it's just water with a little bit of whiskey flavor, and you don't get all the nuance that you would get. So Ardray off the rocks is kind of a combo of those two. You get a little bit of the chill, a little bit of the dilution, but you don't have to worry about it over diluting. We've created these really beautiful strainers. So
Love
if
it.
you pick up your little triangle strainer that's on top of your marble, put it on your glass.
Ooh.
We have a little sphere ice cube in here, and then we're gonna take our whiskey, cheers, and I'm gonna count you down. We're gonna pour for approximately 8 seconds.
Okay.
Here's the thing. If you don't pour for 8 seconds, it's fine. If you pour for less, it's just slightly less diluted. If you pour it for more, it's just more diluted.
Okay.
So at the end of the day, it's never gonna be wrong. You've never messed it up. But aiming for that 8 seconds is the perfect level of chill and dilution that my team and I got to work on together when we
Right.
were together. So, cheers.
Cheers.
Ardray. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. And I always say if you have any more whiskey left, just shimmy it over.
There you go.
And then take your ice cube. We don't want to waste any of it. Give that a little shimmy. Jiggle it out. And then you can put it right back in its holder.
All right.
And then the whiskey that you have here is your Ardray off the rocks.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
That's so nice.
It's wild how different it tastes from the neat whiskey
Yeah.
we just tasted to here. And that's because of the artistry of the blend.
Yeah.
So once you pour it over that whiskey and get that little bit of openness, I haven't actually, I'll do some science. I'll get numbers back to you.
Sure.
But like the science of it pouring over an ice cube for 8 seconds, the amount of dilution it gets and what it does, like to what percentage the alcohol gets down to, I love that the same alcohol, depending on what the dilution is, shows up differently.
Yeah.
And this is the perfect example of that. Like neat, much more robust, a little more, and this, I get more of the floral notes. What are you finding?
I mean, I honestly, I get a little bit more of the peat.
Yeah.
Like,
oh, nice. On
like-
the nose especially, because it opens it.
Mm-hmm. It's so nice though. Like that is, I mean, you do get the floral, which is really nice. I mean, I love that, like, because again, there's that whole, like, the idea of pouring Japanese whiskey over ice.
Yeah.
And there's the idea of, like, making, pouring, like, there's a whole ceremony of
'Cause this
pouring
is
over ice.
And that's what we've kind of created here. We have this ceremony, and like,
And I
but
love
it's
it.
also, we like to make it fun.
Yeah.
Like, I'm always counting down, I'm having a good time. And what I love about this is people who wouldn't necessarily try a Scotch neat do like an experience. So if I'm
Yeah.
hosting something and we're doing an Ardray off the rocks pour, people who maybe wouldn't have normally, if I would have just handed them a whiskey neat, they'll come over and they're like, oh, well, I want to do it. I want to get the footage. I want to do whatever. And so they'll do it and then they'll take a sip. And the amount of people who I have met who've been like, I'm not a whiskey drinker, but this is fucking delicious, has been a million.
Yeah.
Like the amount of people who've been like, I don't actually think I like whiskey that much, but this was so lovely. And I'm like, I think you do like whiskey. You just haven't been like exposed to the right whiskeys.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, I'll be the first whiskey that you like. Let's go. Like have Ardray be the first whiskey you like. But so much of it is just that so many people aren't used to drinking things neat.
Yeah.
And so adding a little chill, a little dilution makes it more manageable for our palates. And like the dilution brings it down from 48 to whatever percentage it brings it down to. The chill makes it something that's more acceptable to their brain in that way. And then they're able to experience something rather than being like booze, they're like, oh, flavor.
Yeah.
And that's what we're aiming for. We want people to find the flavor and enjoy the booze in their body.
All right, so question 5
Question 5.
comes down to the flip of the whiskey Wednesday coin. You can flip it, you can spin it, you can do whatever you want.
Ooh.
The coin will give us the answer.
Okay.
You do not have to answer.
Thank God.
But I
That's
also
so
hope
nice.
you do answer. But, so, question 5.
Yes.
I've been interviewing a lot of people lately.
Okay.
And it seems that a lot of brand ambassadors have a theater background.
Surprise.
Do you feel that people that have a theater background actually make a better brand ambassador, brand experience, brand whatever in the whiskey community?
Alright, I'm gonna throw it. I feel nervous. It's so heavy. It's-
Yeah.
If you saw it, guys, it's weighty.
Yeah.
Ready? I don't know how to really flip a coin.
There you go. Fuck yeah.
Fuck yeah!
Yeah.
So here's the thing is I think that as I talked about earlier. So many people who are creative end up in our hospitality industry because it does allow us the freedom to continue to be creatives, but also to continue to make money. We need to make money to live. We need to make money to survive. We need to make money to thrive. And so that's also important. But at the end of the day, making money isn't my end all be all. It is because I need to pay my bills. But like my creative energy is what's more important to me. And I think that that's something that people who have a theater background, people who are theatrical, being a brand ambassador is a lot about presenting to people. And I think that people with theater background, that's what our lives came from. Like, yeah, we were reading a script and maybe I'm not reading a script when I'm presenting to you, but I understand how to speak to people. I understand how to connect with people. I understand, like, all those things are things I've learned through theater. And I'm not saying that you can't be a brand ambassador if you don't have those backgrounds. I know a lot of people who don't have those backgrounds who are phenomenal orators, phenomenal brand ambassadors, phenomenal educators. But at the end of the day, I think that as an industry that so fully encompasses our theatrical realm and our and allows people who also have these other passions to kind of find things, theater is, like, acting is one of the hardest careers out there. Like, what other job do you get told no every day, if not multiple times a day? Like, theater, people are telling you no all the time. And most jobs, you apply to a new job and maybe they say that you're applying to a couple and somebody says no, but most of them say yes. Like, theater people are used to a no. So when you go in, even if you're presenting something, like, people understand no. Like, we understand no, but also we understand how to make something dynamic, how to bring a room of people into something, how to really engage people, because we understand people. I think that a lot of theater people understand, like, our whole job was understanding people so we could play different people. So we understand different people that we're engaging with on a day-to-day basis. Because just because I played a person who's an X, Y, and Z situation, I've never been in that situation, but I have fully immersed myself in that situation through my theatrical experience. So, like, yeah, maybe I'm not a single mom or I'm not pregnant in this way. Like, I got 0 kids. I am one of 7 kids, so I can pull from other points of my life to find from it. But, like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't have any, but I can play a mother and I can find those emotions easily through my career. And so, like, I think that our ability to access these emotions that maybe aren't always attached to us allows us to really connect with people from a variety of different standpoints, from a variety of different places. So, like, I think that that's why you'll see a lot of theatrical people involved in brand advocacy, because also we were doing theater stuff while we were also bartending. It's not like we only did theater stuff and then we went to brand advocacy. It's like, no, we know more about booze because that was our career while we were trying to act and doing acting things and whatever. And there are so many people who do both. But, like, theater and acting, screen, stage is very, very difficult. It's one of those things that, like, you can be an amazing person, but it's all the right place, right time. And I think that's very much about brand life and bar life. Right place, right time, knowing the right people. And so my big thing is, like, get out there and meet more people. Because you'll be more in the right place, right person if you know more people, if you're in the right place more often. And, like, yes, take your time. Have your personal, like, zen out at home moments. Do all that. That's very important. But at the end of the day, also go out, meet people, mingle, do all those things, because when you're looking for that next job, or if somebody's looking for that next job, they're going to look for you if you've impressed them in other places. So I think that theater people are good about, like, wooing people, not in a fake way, but in their natural way. They're just, like, good people. And, like, you end up in these social situations, and then when the opportunities come up, people will reach out to you because they're like, hey, we need somebody for this role and we thought about you. If you're not saying that quiet people can't be great brand ambassadors as well, but, like, if nobody knows who you are, like, a lot of the job of being a brand ambassador, being a brand curator, being a brand advocate in any way, shape, or form involves being engaged with the people. And so you need to have that kind of connection with them. And I think that theater has really prepped us for that. We're used to having a little community. We're used to having a little show. We're used to having all these things. They're not, like, little in the not negative way, little in like a close knit. And I feel like our little hospitality community is so close knit that I would joke around. I'm like, if I were an accountant, I wouldn't be like, hey, I'm going to Alabama. What are you doing in Alabama? but as a bartender, I'm like, I'm going to Alabama. Who do all my friends know in Alabama?
Exactly.
Like, we're very integrated and we're very open to people from different backgrounds, different places, different things. And I think that that's what really allows us to grow.
Yeah. No, and well, I think you nailed the question, like in question 1 in your origin story, which is, look, we tell stories and it's all wrapped up right behind the bar.
History, science, storytelling.
Yeah.
Here we are.
So there we go. That's 5 drinks down. 5
drinks.
questions answered. Not even close to midnight yet.
Not even. It's still sunny out.
Yeah. Crystal, thank you so much.
Thank you, Dan.
I really appreciate your time.
Thanks.
Until we can drink together in person again.
Very soon.
I can't wait. So
You're stuck with me.
I know.
Sorry.
I love it. So we're gonna fucking destroy this city.
Crushed it.
There we go. Done.
Bam.